So welcome everybody to a new update video. I know it's been a while since we've done one, and as a result I have collected a fair few new films to my collection. 21 films in fact have been added to my collection that aren't horror films. I'm saying that specifically because I will be doing a horror update on Halloween, because I've also collected a fair few horror films and it is the spooky season, so I thought I'd do a special on that day. But yeah, regardless, 21 films that aren't horror, that is still a huge amount, and it's easily the biggest update that I've ever done. So yeah, we're going to start off with the normal Blu-rays first, then we'll move on to 4K films, and then we'll move on to the more boutique labels. So yeah, first off we have 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still, a genuine classic sci-fi film, definitely the one that kick-started the whole sci-fi era in the 50s. And yeah, standard Blu-ray, just a single disc on its own, nothing extra, but you know, it's still a classic film. It is a bit of an old Blu-ray from 2008, so it's probably not the best quality, but nonetheless the film itself is a great film, and yeah, the quality of the film will shine through any flaws in the Blu-ray itself. And then we have a bit more of a modern film. We have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now this is easily one of my favourite animated films of the last few years, and yeah, definitely showed that superhero films don't have to be live action to be a superb film. I know there's probably been countless other, direct to DVD superhero animated films, but this getting a release in the cinemas and being great was one of the few instances of that actually happening as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, again, like The Day the Earth Stood Still, it's a single Blu-ray disc. But yeah, still a great film and easily one of my favourites from 2018. Highly recommend it if you have not seen it already. Switching right back to the 50s, we have This Island Earth, another sci-fi film. This one's from 1955. And yeah, gloats about it being 2.5 years in the making purely because of the miniatures and the special effects, which were still pretty much coming into their own back in that time. And it has a really rather crazy alien looking on the back. Can't remember if the alien actually looks like that, but regardless, yeah, it's a crazy looking alien. And yeah, again, another single disc. But at least it is printed, so that is something at least. Yeah, but this was actually only released last year, so still, it's at least a new Blu-ray, even if it's far from a new film. Switching back to the 2010s, I think it's 2010, yeah, 2019's The Motherless Brooklyn. Now, a lot of people hated this film, but I'm not sure why, because I absolutely enjoyed it, and it's easily one of my favourite period throwbacks of recent times, especially since you've got a really good cast. You've got Edward Norton, Bruce Willis, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Alec Baldwin, and Willem Dafoe. And yeah, it's just my perfect kind of like film noir throwback, really. Obviously, it's not in black and white, and it's not got, some of the classic film noir tropes, but still, it's a fantastic film. And considering it's 144 minutes, I was utterly engrossed by this when I saw it at the cinema at the time. Now going back to the 80s, we have a childhood favourite. Now, it isn't a particularly great film. I can see why people wouldn't like it, but I enjoyed this film so much back as a child that I made not only the VHS break, but the VHS player to break as well, as it got stuck inside the player. So we had to get a whole new VHS player purely because of Harry and the Hendersons. I know, don't judge, but it's a fantastic film as far as I'm concerned. Nice and short, only 111 minutes long, and yeah, really good makeup effects. In fact, it actually got it won Best Makeup at the Oscars at that time for its makeup effects, because they are actually really, really rather good. And it's got John Lithgow in the lead role, who's one of my favourite actors. So yeah, really, really good film. And yeah, I think he's got a score by, who was it? Oh yeah, but you've also got a early role by David Suchet, who in Britain is most well known for playing Poirot. And yeah, I'm not sure who did the score, but I'm pretty sure it's by someone I actually rather enjoy. But regardless, really good childhood favourite. And again, a film that was only released last year on Blu-ray. Don't know why it took so long to actually get that out on Blu-ray. And then fast forward into the 90s, a film that I would have expected to have seen before this year, but I actually haven't, especially considering it's based in the 50s. It's a sci-fi film. It's got a really nostalgic look for 50s sci-fi from the time, and it's got superb animation, and it is The Iron Giant. Yes, I've only recently seen this film, but what a film. A superb film. And yeah, really great animation. Fortunately, it's not printed on the disc, but regardless, it's still a really, really good film. Clocks in at less than 90 minutes as well. got a really good voice cast, and it's directed by Brad Bird, who went on to do The Incredibles, which, is also a great film. I also forgot to show you that Henry Henderson's has a printed disc, and I think Motherless Brooklyn does as well. No, it doesn't. So, yeah. But regardless, yeah, The Iron Giant is a fantastic film. It's easily one of my favourite first-time watches of this year. So that's the standard Blu-rays done. So let's move on to the 4Ks. Now, all but one of these are films that I originally had on Blu-ray. I figured it was high time to give some of these an upgrade, as, I've had them on Blu-ray for a long time, and at least in the case of one of them, I had the sequel on Blu-ray, so I thought on 4K, so I thought I may as well get the original on 4K. But firstly, let's look at Die Hard on 4K. Now, this has been a long-standing classic as far as I'm concerned in terms of the Christmas period, and I've had the Blu-ray on in a box set of the rest of the Die Hard films for a very long time, so I thought it was high time to get this on 4K, especially since, like I said, I watch the film year on out, and figured it was high time to give it an upgrade. So standard Blu-ray there, and then the 4K, which isn't printed at the back. So this is a relatively new 4K as well. I think it is 2019, so it's not an old one at all. I think it was released for it was for the 30th anniversary. So about high time to get the ultimate version of that film, since it's not only a Christmas classic as well as I'm concerned, but it's a genuinely great action film and one of my favourite films, if not my actual favourite film of all time. And a film that I hadn't had before, but now do, because it's on 4K, only got released a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, and that is The Hunt for Red October. Now, this is the first in the Jack Ryan series, with Alec Baldwin in the role of Jack Ryan, and then you've also got Sean Connery as a Russian sea captain, or U-boat captain, or whatever he's called. But it's my favourite of the Jack Ryan film series, even though the next two with Harrison Ford were also really great. Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. But then after Clear and Present Danger, they decided to swap out the actor again for Ben Affleck for Sum of All Fears, which I didn't really like. And then they had Chris Pine in another film that came out a few years ago in the role. So, but this is my favourite of the lot. And, hopefully it'll look superb on 4K. It is an old film, it came out in 1990, but should hopefully look great, especially with all the special effects. And John McTiernan also directed this as well as Die Hard, so I've got two of his films on 4K now. All I really need now is Predator, which is another great film from him. Then in terms of the sequel that I was on about, that I already had on 4K, and now I have Blade Runner on 4K, the final cut. So I do actually prefer 2049 to this, but this is still a great film in its own right, and definitely set a trend or two in terms of sci-fi films. And the 4K disc is nicely printed, so at least it's got that going for it. And then the standard Blu-ray at the back. And this came out only this year apparently. So so it's a pretty brand new 4K release, that. And finally, another film that I really enjoy, another 90s film like Hunt for Red October, is Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. This is probably my favourite film from his outside of Rambo. The first Rambo film is great. The rest aren't particularly great, but this is definitely well up there with the likes of Rambo. Not quite as much, but still a really, really good film. And then as you can see, brand new restoration. Now, I did have the brand new restoration of this on Blu-ray, but I figured it's high time to get one of my favourite action films from the 90s on 4K. Both discs are printed. And this release came out 2018, so really relatively new. But easily one of the best action films of the 90s, with one of the best stunts from the 90s, as well as a stunt performer was paid $1 million to rappel from one plane to another below it, which even today would be a dangerous stunt, never mind, nearly 30 years ago. Now we're moving on to Network. Now I recently got, in the previous update, I had a film called Defense of the Realm, which was out on the Network label. But outside of that, I've only had a couple of other films from that label, so I figured it was high time to take a look at their site and see what else he had. But firstly, I found Robbery from Network, not on their site, but in CEX for only £4. Now I can hardly turn that down. Now granted, the label on there has stuck and made a bit of a mess, but yeah, still for only £4, can hardly turn turn down one of the best heist films of the 60s, based on the Great Train Robbery. It's really rather a taut film. Got a good cast. You got Stanley Baker in it and Frank Finlay. And it's also directed by P.T. Yates, who the year later after this directed Bullet. So I imagine this gave him that directorial role, because it's really got a lot of the elements in Bullet in this. So fantastic film. And I also like the fact that these are in really rather thin cases, so they really don't take up much room. Also comes with a printed disc and a little booklet as well, which if I can get out. Basically got production notes by Sheldon Hall, so it'll talk you through the film, the restoration, whatever else, and how everything got produced and the like. So basically just goes through the film itself. And these next two films I actually haven't seen yet, but they are The Last Seduction, which has Linda Ferrantino in it, Peter Berg and Bill Pullman. Also directed by John Dahl. I think John Dahl also did the fantastic Red Rock West. But regardless, this is supposed to be a really good film, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it, because it's a neo-noir, and I'm really into my noir kind of films, neo-noir or otherwise. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. This version came out in 2015, so it's not particularly new, but still looks good enough to me. And it comes with 2 discs as well. Blu-ray and DVD. Just trying to read that and see what it said. But again, like in the Robbery, you also get a booklet going through the film with shots from the film itself. So really looking forward to seeing that. I hope it's good. I've heard that good things about it, so I imagine it will be. Another film that I'm hoping is good, especially given even better cast than To Die For. We have Last Seduction. We have To Die For, should I say? And Nicole Kidman, Matt Dillon, and Joaquin Phoenix. And directed by Gus Van Sant, so this should also be pretty damn good. And not a new release again. This also came out in 2015. No booklet with it either, but regardless, I'm hoping it's a good film, especially since I'm quite a fan of Nicole Kidman, especially with several of her films being favourites of mine. And then moving on to something a fair bit older, from 1950, I think. 1950, State Secret. Now this is quite a Hitchcockian kind of film. Basically about a doctor that ends up witnessing the death of a totalitarian state leader, and the totalitarian state doesn't want to get out that the leader has died, because they have an election to win, and with their leader dead, they will fear that they won't win that election. And comes with a little bit of a little card thing, nothing particularly great, but it does tell you about the story of State Secret with the cast and the people behind it. And it's only rated a U, so you're not going to really see any violence or anything like that. But still, got a good cast. Douglas Fairbanks, Glynis Johns and Jack Hawkins. And real classic of the era, and kind of emulates the kind of period that it was released. And then swiftly going back to sci-fi, although not from the 1950s, from 1963, Unearthly Stranger. Now, the look of that guy there makes it sound like it's going to be something that it isn't, but what it is actually great. So highly recommend it if you're into these kind of films. Obviously it's not from the 50s, so it's not quite got that aesthetic tone or appeal of 50s sci-fi, but still definitely one of the best of its type from the 60s for sure. And even older in terms of the releases. All this came out in 2014, but still should look superb on Blu-ray. So now we're moving on to BFI, which are typically quite expensive, and these were, but regardless, they are 3 films that I really rather enjoy. And the first of which is The Wages of Fear, all in French. And this is even described by Christopher Nolan a masterpiece of suspense, and it certainly is, especially in the second half of the film. Although I do actually prefer the loose remake called Sorcerer, directed by William Friedkin. But that's purely because I think the cast is a little bit more relatable, and I just prefer the 70s kind of aesthetic to the 50s style of aesthetic with this. Plus, it's got a really superb score by Tangerine Dream, and I really am a fan of Roy Schneider in the lead role. But yeah, this is still a really fantastic film. Nice thick booklet with it as well. Going through the special features, got pictures of the cast, and then basically just goes through it. A couple of essays in there, and yeah, double release, Blu-ray and DVD, and a really rather fantastic film. If you're into your 50s European films, then I highly recommend that, even though it's obviously not set in Europe. And then we also have from 1961, the 179-minute epic Judgment at Nuremberg. Now, this might seem like a bit of a weighty film, because it is, but don't let the length and the subject matter really put you off, because this makes the most of those 3 hours. And yeah, for something that pretty much all in a courtroom, those 3 hours fly by. And you've also got a spectacular cast. You've got Spencer Tracy, Burt Lancaster, Richard Widmark, Marlena Dietrich, Maximilian Schell, Judy Garland, Montgomery Clift, William Shatner, and Kenneth McKenna. And it's directed by Stanley Kramer. And yeah, deals with basically the 4 judges during the Nazi era and whether or not they legally and aided the Nazis at that time in terms of causing the Holocaust and other crimes. And yeah, you actually see film footage from when the Allies invaded the concentration camps, and it's really harrowing footage, but it does get across why the judges on trial, why the Nazis were right to be defeated, and everything like that. And it's a superb release. Again, double discs like on Wages of Fear, and yeah, even thicker booklet. This is a really rather fat one. It actually makes the Blu-ray case quite heavy, because it is a 32-page booklet, and yeah, it goes through everything. Got shots from the film like that, and yeah, it goes through the cast, goes through the historical accuracy, the authenticity and artifice, and yeah, just basically just talks about it in great detail. There's also a couple of extras on here that I didn't realise. There's a Guardian interview with Maximilian Schell, which is 86 minutes long. There's a tribute to Stanley Kramer, which is 14 minutes long, which has interviews with the screenwriter and Kramer's widow. You got the value of a single human being at 6 minutes long. Got an in conversation with Harvey Mann and Maximilian Schell, which is 20 minutes long. You've got all sorts in here. You've even got about the Berlin Airlift, the story of a great achievement from 1949. So you've even got archival footage going way back to the 40s. So yeah, that is really interesting. I will hopefully get round to those special features, because they do sound interesting, and it's certainly not the kind of stuff that you normally expect on such a release. And then also from BFI, from 1961, The Day the Earth Caught Fire. Now this is a kind of a prerequisite to other disaster films from the 70s, but it doesn't rely really on explosions or massive amounts of destruction or anything like that. It's just basically about the people trying to deal with the fact that the sun is about to explode, basically. And yeah, it's really, really rather well done. Oh no, it's about the don't know why I got the sun about to explode. I was reading there. When the USA and Russia simultaneously test nuclear bombs, the Earth is knocked off its axis and set on a collision course with the sun. As the city burns, washed-up reporter Peter Stenning breaks the story and investigates a government cover-up. So, yeah, so yeah, really well thematically deep film dealing with about nuclear weapons and the environment, and yeah, how whether or not telling people about an incoming disaster is good enough, good to do or not. Just let something happen without people worrying about it and turning into chaos. And yeah, got a nice printed disc. The good thing about this film as well is that you can tell when the sun is getting closer and closer, because the brightness of the film, or the general cinematography and all that lot starts to get brighter and more orange and more red, rather than the I think it starts out in black and white. But yeah, superb film. easily one of the best of its type. Really rather quite restrained as well, especially in comparison to Val Guest, who directed this previous films, because he also did The Abominable Snowman and the Quatermass Experiment. Yeah, nice thick booklet. All of the crew there and everything like that. So yeah, really fantastic film. And yeah, we have 2 more films now, starring Marlene Dietrich. We just saw her in Judgment at Nuremberg. And from Criterion, we have Destree Rides Again, which also stars a young Jane Stewart, who yeah, really does come across like he did in his 50s films from Hitchcock, you know, North by Northwest and Rear Window. And yeah, you really can see his acting ability all the way back in 1939, which is when this was released. But yeah, Marlene Dietrich is a big draw for me, because I've seen her in numerous films this year and bought her in numerous of her films as well. And yeah, this is just another one of those. And yeah, a really nice booklet that opens up like a menu, because this is set in a saloon come bar, come restaurant even. And yeah, it talks about the transfer. You got an essay by Farron Smith Neame. And yeah, quite long. Which is typical for some Criterion collections, but I really like that kind of whole menu look going on with it. Really nicely done. So yeah, cracking Western that is. And yeah, again, another triumph for Marlene Dietrich from the 30s. And finally, from Eureka, from Marlene Dietrich even, we have a Eureka release, The Blue Angel. Now, I had the next 6 collaborations between Marlene Dietrich and Josef van Sternberg on this Marlene Dietrich box set here. And so I figured, since I really enjoyed those 6 and I've enjoyed other Marlene Dietrich films, I must go right back to first, I think this was her first sound film, but it's definitely the first film Marlene Dietrich and Josef van Sternberg collaborated on. So I figured, since I really enjoyed the other 6, I may as well start off at the beginning with them. I've not seen it yet, but I have heard great things, and this has become my oldest film that I now own, as this came out a few months before Morocco, which was also from 1930. So yeah, still really looking forward to this. It's all in German apparently, so that's why it's got Der Blue Engel on the back and some on the front as well. So that's obviously the original title in German. A triple release on this one, because you've got the Blu-ray with all the special features on it, and then you got the DVD with the film and then the special features as well. Because there's a ton of special features on this. You got a new and exclusive video essay on the film. You've got a original 1929 screen test with Marlene Dietrich. You've got a 1971 interview clip with Dietrich. You've got 3 clips of Dietrich in performance from 1963 and 1972 concerts, theatrical and re-release trailers, and yeah, a 48-page booklet, which I'll show you now. I swear these booklets are getting thicker and thicker, but yeah, really nicely done booklet. And there's a rear as well, showing off the kind of cameras that we used at the time, which is interesting. I expected the cameras from back in then to be even bigger than that, to be honest. But yeah, goes for the film, goes for the cast. I don't know of any of the other casts, because they are all German or Austrian or whatever. But yeah, Marlene Dietrich, again, like usual, is the big draw. Just trying to find a picture of her in here. Pretty sure that's her there. But yeah, these are all fascinating little booklets, these are. Pretty sure that's her again. So yeah, Marlene Dietrich has definitely become the actress of the year as far as I'm concerned for me, because I think I've seen her in now 13 films, so this will be the 14th film. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing it. And finally, also from Eureka, we have from the 80s, Enemy Mine, more specifically 1985, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, who also went on to do, I think, In the Line of Fire and other films, Air Force One as well, I think. But yeah, this has got Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. And basically, Dennis Quaid is human. Louis Gossett Jr. is a alien. They're at war. Both races are at war with one another, but they end up crash landing on the same planet that is deserted. And they basically have to join forces to survive the planet, survive any scavengers that end up arriving on the planet, and so forth and so forth. And yeah, it's a really solid film. Not my favourite film from Wolfgang Petersen, and yeah, certainly could be done a little bit better in some regards. But yeah, overall, it's a fantastic film. Got really good makeup on it. It's a really good score as well. Decent action, decent production overall, and I also got a little booklet as well. So there they are, Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. And yeah, Louis Gossett Jr. does a really good job of being an actor through all of the heavy makeup that is on him and all that lot. So yeah, it's well worth watching if you're into your sci-fi, especially from the 80s. And yeah, there's a language drac there. You can try and learn it if you wish. So yeah, yes is no is ne. It is da, and I is ni, and you is nu, and what is s, and kill is kurum. Probably not saying them right, but yeah, still, really good film. Even if it isn't my favourite from Wolfgang Petersen or my favourite from the 80s in terms of sci-fi films. So yeah, that's how Louis Gossett Jr. looks there. And yeah, really solid film. So there's all 21 non-horror films that I have bought recently. So yeah, massive amount of films there. Sorry if this has been a bit long-winded, but yeah, was a lot to get through. But regardless, still 21 really good films, 21 films that I'm proud to have part of my collection, and 21 films that I recommend wholly. So even the ones I haven't seen just purely because of their reputation, never mind the fact that I will undoubtedly enjoy them. So yeah, nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.